everybody, it is Calxiyn here, and thank you for attending Calxyn's Royal Court today as we have gathered to discuss Beastars Season 2, Episode 10. I'm really excited to get into this reaction. It's gonna be very interesting to see, like, what's gonna go on with Riz and everything, because he basically just made a spear. So I'm getting a little bit worried, you know what I'm saying? But before we get into that, remember to subscribe so you are notified when I post a Beastars episode on YouTube anyway. But if you guys want to see my full-length watch-along reactions, those are up exclusively on Patreon, but also early access to the reviews. Let's just get into it. Hello? Oh, so Riz is just cooking? Okay. Yeah, Riz is just cooking some tomatoes. Okay. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I don't know if I like that, Riz. I don't know if I like that coming from you. I don't like tomatoes. I don't like the texture of a tomato, you know what I'm saying? Damn. See, I don't think that Tem was like that at all. I think that's just his imagination. I do like that though. The contrast, like the blood on the face and everything, like that's, or not blood, but that's tomato juice. Bro, this did not happen. This is like the delusion, right? In my opinion. Oh, okay. So the guilt is getting to him. Okay. Oh, damn. Well, that's not good. But bro, you can't kill them. Like, you know what I mean? Like the police. Oh my God, seriously? Seriously? Oh, damn! Look at this mouse in the background. He's probably like, what is happening? Oh boy, Legoshi's just sleeping in class all the time. Oh my God, look at everyone. Look at everyone, like, looking at them. That's so funny. Everyone's just like, everybody knows, right? So, yeah, how is class? We never see class. Class does not exist, you know? Oh. Damn. Damn. Aw. Wait, what? Hello? What is happening? Excuse me? Like, this came out of nowhere. Excuse me? Like, you know what I mean? Y'all aren't even dating. Thank you, he says. Wait, what? Oh. So, like, all the things that Rui wasn't. Because, like, is she so capable? But, you know what I mean? Like, she's like, oh, 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 like instinct, you know? Oh, come on, Legoshi, just tell her that he's okay. Oh. Oh, well, that's nice. Okay, but why don't you just tell her? You know what I mean? Oh, I see. He doesn't want to hold her until, I guess, Riz and everything. I see, I get it. Oh, okay. Oh, so this is his girlfriend? Okay. Oh, damn. I hope that's not foreshadowing. Not Riona. She is not Riona. Oh, really? Again, Pina? You can't keep it straight. You know what I mean? Oh, damn. Okay. I guess. Is Riz back there? What's that that look for? Oh, well, that's not good. I don't like that. Pina, you're too young to die. You just got here. Jesus Christ. Even the horns? Damn. I love Pina. Like, he's... Okay, what I was gonna say is I like how Pina is... He tries to play it off, but you can see how scared he is. Ah, God, no, I can't. I don't think he bit it off, but I think he just licked him. Oh, God, I can't. Okay. There's no spit. Let's all take a deep breath. Okay, yeah. He still has all his... Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, God. This show in the mouth stuff, I hate it. I hate it so much. See? Like, Pina on the outside tries to play it cool, but on the inside... Huh? Damn. In the spotlight. Off script. Ah, damn! Good job, Pina! How moving, how touching, how amazing! Juno's just like, what the fuck? Damn. Psychological warfare. Oh. I think he's afraid because he's developing a connection to him, right? Okay. I guess. Damn. Sorry, Legoshi. Oh, come on. Just ask Bill for help. No, just ask Bill for help, bro. Damn. Oh no! See? Why couldn't y'all just tell Bill what was going on? Come on, Bill! Uh-oh, that may not be good. Damn! Okay! Legacy, okay! Okay, he is gonna just fight him! Alone? Oh! Come on, Bill! Rui! Anybody! Six Eyes? Anybody! Aw, oh, damn. Oh. Oh, damn. Damn. Bullshit. Ah. Oh. Oh, damn, because his skin I mean, he is, kinda. Isn't he? Well, okay. Damn. So now they're just setting up for a fight. Damn. Okay, well, it do be like that sometimes. That's what I'm saying, bro. You needed friends. Bugs. Okay. Okay. All right, everybody, let us get into the review. And I really like this episode because I feel like it helped me understand everybody more. More so like Legoshi and Haru stuff, just because like this whole time I've been like, Legoshi, just go to the police, right? But it's not just about like not having evidence or having evidence. Like it seems to be more so about like Legoshi's like moral compass, that he is basically just following the method that Gohan taught him, right? And so I feel like that at first he did want to like arrest Riz, right? But like over time, learning from Gohan, he realized like, oh, well, maybe there is another way. Maybe Gohan's right. Like they have that big conversation last episode, which I think has influenced Legoshi's opinion now. And that's why he hasn't taken him into the police, for example. But anyway, let's get to, I guess, Riz's cooking show, I guess, for the first part of this episode, right? So obviously he's cooking some tomatoes here and everything, and so he says, people think tomatoes taste best in the summer, but in fact it tastes better in autumn to early winter. I'm not exactly sure like where we are in terms of like months and stuff, but I feel like that this could also be like a metaphor of some kind, right? Because like the way that we think about seasons, right, is like spring is like rebirth, new beginning, summer is like, you know, kind of like that too. Like, not that summer is good, but like, you know, spring and summer is when things live, autumn and winter is where things go to die. That's basically how we tend to think of things, right? And so I'm wondering if like the tomatoes tasting sweeter, or I guess better, in autumn and winter could be like a metaphor, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't good enough just to be friends with Tem, you had to kill Tem too. And like the winter stuff could be like a metaphor of that, like death. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you know, you can't just have the tomatoes in the summer. You gotta have them. I don't know. Like, maybe I'm just making things up at this point, but do you guys understand what I'm saying? Like, it does make sense, doesn't it? I had to fix the crop. Anyway, he starts to peel the tomato, and we actually get to see, I guess, his roommates, right? I guess that, like, it seems like that carnivores can share a dorm with other carnivores, except for the bears who all have to share a room together, because that kind of makes sense, right? Because like the bears are more dangerous, I guess you could say, than other carnivores, right? So like Legoshi can room with Jack and like everybody else that's in that room together, but it seems like all the bears have kind of like congregated or have been forced to all like stay together all the time. I don't know, these could also just be his friends, but like even when he was woken up from the nightmare, I think that the room was all bears. And so you could almost think of it as like there is like segregation within segregation, right? Like it's not just herbivores and carnivores, right? Within carnivores, there are carnivores that are so like powerful and strong that everybody else, like even other carnivores, stay away from them. And I think that that's actually really interesting. But I do like the design of these guys right here. I think that they look pretty cool. I do like this one. They all kind of have like the same face, I guess, you know, but they are all bears, so I don't know. But like I do like the pattern, I guess I could say. Like I like the pattern right there. And so they're not like very uniquely designed, because like we've seen wolves, right? But like not all wolves look like Legoshi. All these bears kind of look like each other, but I don't know anything about bears. Anyway, Riz is saying that he feels calm while cooking, right? And so like this may be almost, I don't want to say escape, but this may be like the only like refuge from his thoughts, which is interesting that they're humanizing him so much, because I'm just like, fuck Riz. Like at this point I'm like, fuck Riz, right? But I feel like that Legoshi makes a good point. Like you can't help but almost not feel bad for him, but he says something later like, you know, that it's so hard to hate him because sometimes he is like genuinely a nice guy, like when he talks to the lady, but it's also all fake, right? So you know what I mean? And so I don't know, I'm just like kind of on the fence about it, right? Like I get morally gray, but I don't think he's morally gray. I think they're just like humanizing someone who is very, very, I don't know, maybe you could make the argument though that he's not like a psychopath, he's just ill, right? And that's not really his fault. Like maybe I need to stop being so hard on him and recognize that like he's not like a cold-blooded killer, he's just kind of sick and needs to be rehabilitated. So maybe I'm the bad guy, you know what I mean? Maybe society, you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe I need to be a bit more open-minded, I guess, that he's not like just evil. But genuinely, he just needs, like, if he got rehabilitated by Gohan, he would, like, you know what I mean? He would actually feel, like, sorry. But he's basically living in, like, an hallucination or, like, a delusion. And can you really blame someone for that? You know, like, could you blame someone? Because he's basically, like, I would say, yeah, he is basically hallucinating, right? He kind of made up this whole thing in his head about, like, oh, yeah, but Tem, you know, consented to being eaten and everything, which we see right here. And so they talk about how Riz's food is delicious, always has a strong flavor. But then he basically reveals that he can't taste anything. Or I guess not to them, but he reveals that to us, that he has lost his sense of taste, right? And so that's kind of interesting as a metaphor as well, right? Like that he lost his ability to like taste. It's almost like, it's kind of like an Adam and Eve type situation. I know that this is so weird, but it's like, you know, like you bit from the apple and now you can't, like you, forbidden knowledge, I guess you could say. You bit from the apple and now you can't like stay in like God's kingdom, so to speak. I know that's such a random thing to say, but that's the first thing that I sort of thought of, because it's like he took a bite from the forbidden fruit, like he devoured someone, and now he cannot like taste anymore, like he's lost his sense of taste. Like there's a bit of a metaphor there about that like type of loss, that he did something like forbidden and now there's no like going back, he lost all of his taste and everything. And see, this is what I mean here, like he says that he ate Tem with Tem's consent, but that's not what happened, right? And so I kind of feel bad, I guess, for Riz in that regard, because like he doesn't know any better. Like genuinely, like it seems like that his brain has sort of created an imaginary scenario to kind of like almost stop him from feeling the trauma, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like it's almost created like a delusion because the truth is so bad that it would cause him to have like a mental breakdown. And that's why I think that he said, you know, he can't let Legoshi ruin his like true friendship and everything, because part of him knows if Legoshi like finds out the truth and does turn him in, the delusion will come crashing down. It's kind of like if Riz was taken in by the police and the police were like, actually, like we saw signs of struggle, like Tem like fought against you, you know what I mean? He did not consent to eat you. Like that would cause his world to come crashing down. So it's almost like he's invented like this fake delusion almost, you know, to protect his brain, right? I'm the only bear who established a true friendship with a herbivore. Again, see, that's how he thinks of it. And I feel like kind of bad for him in that way, right? I do love the, I guess the framing of this scene. Like I love how he eats the tomato and then we get like a little red. Obviously that's just like, I don't know, tomato juice or something, right? I don't like tomatoes at all. I know that's like totally irrelevant. I hate tomatoes. I only like tomatoes like if it's sauce, you know what I mean? Like I don't like them, I don't know, I don't like pulp in my tomatoes, I guess. Like I don't like tomatoes like that where they're still intact, I guess you could say. It's like I don't like oranges, but I like orange juice. It's the pulp, I swear. I think that that's what it is. I think that we just cracked the code, that's why. Anyway, and so I really like the blood analogy, or not analogy, but like the blood reference, right? It's kind of almost like the framing of the scene. It's like he has blood, but it's just the tomato, right? As the ingredients entrust themselves to me, I devour him delicately and peacefully, right? So, like, it's kind of like that Tem was the ingredient that night, but cooking calms him down because it's almost like the same thing. Like, cooking food is almost the same thing as, like, devouring Tem, I guess. You know what I mean? Like it's as close as he can get back to that experience, back to the ingredients trusting themselves to me, but the ingredients aren't like sentient, you know what I mean? So it's almost like that's, maybe cooking is a calming experience because it's almost reminiscent of that feeling. It's the closest thing that he can get in like everyday life. Now it's very interesting that he says that, right? At least in my opinion, because something that I've been thinking about is this idea of like, Legoshi will have to eat meat because that's the only way to get stronger. You know, like a little circle of life type thing, right? It's almost as if Legacy will go down the road of like, I don't want to eat meat, I don't want to, you know, eat herbivore meat if I'm supposed to protect the herbivores, but then ultimately he will have to in order to get strong enough. And the whole lesson will be, you know, like, yes, I think that like it was a good thing that he did bury the bodies at the beach and everything, but like those people died, and now in a way they're still being used as like food for something, right? You know, it's like if I die and I go into the ground, okay, and like I get eaten by the worms, and then the worms get eaten by the birds, and the birds get eaten, right? The birds get eaten by, you know, the foxes or whatever, right? And so like one way or another, like we are all going to be, like even humans, like we are going to be food for something one day, right? And so I feel like that it's very interesting for Riz to kind of like talk about the ingredients the same way he talked about Tem, because like, yes, Tem was a person, so I feel like that's completely different, you know what I mean? Like he basically, I still feel like that he murdered someone. However, when we're talking about people that are already dead, like the people that come to the black market, most of them, because we do have cases like Rui, right? Most of them, or at least some of them, are like from funeral homes and hospitals and stuff, which means that like they just died of natural causes, right? Like they weren't murdered, they just died. And like I think that what Legacy will learn is like the circle of life would be to consume that meat in order to protect the herbivores that are still alive, because like bro, they're already dead, you know what I mean? Like burying them is fine, but they're just gonna get eaten by the worms, so how is that any different than getting eaten by you? So I think that that's a very interesting angle to all this, is that Legacy may one day, or I guess soon, right? We only have like 2 episodes, right? He may one day recognize that like a way to win would be to think of like the herbivores that have already died as like entrusting themselves to Legacy. Like, you know what I mean? Like Legacy could kind of think of them that way. Like, I'm not eating this because I want to, but I'm doing it because like herbivores entrust their lives to me in death, so I can protect the herbivores that are still living. Like that would kind of be interesting if Legacy actually kind of takes part of Riz's mentality, and that's the only way to like beat Riz, right? Because at the end of the episode we do hear that there's a way, but we don't hear what that way is, and I'm a little worried, right? And so then you know, he basically goes on to say like meals are the joy of life, right? Tem, you were smiling, right? Like all of that sort of stuff, right? And so like obviously Tem was not. I think that we addressed that before, but I like how he, I guess, wipes the blood off of his mouth, and then he sees, I guess, the blood for what really is, that he has blood on his hands, right? And so then he kind of like imagines the blood on his hands. As long as I'm alive, I'll continue to prevent the devouring. I'll crush you on behalf of Tem, right? And so it's almost as if like if Legacy gets too close to the truth, like Riz's whole world comes crashing down, because he does say they will expose it, and I don't think that he means necessarily to the police. Like, yes, because he says, oh, they'll ruin the friendship between Tem and me, my school life, right? Like, they're basically saying, you know, if they expose it, I'll get arrested, but I feel like that there's more to that. I feel like if it's like, if Legacy gets to the truth, I will have to admit that Tem did not entrust himself to me, that I actually ruined my friendship with Tem by eating him, and he cannot handle that realization. Like, he cannot handle the fact that he ruined Tem and him's friendship, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's what this is all about. Anyway, Riz goes on to say that he'll shut them up, right? And meanwhile, right, Legacy's here, I guess, sleeping in class again, and he's having like dirty dreams, he's saying, right? After all, I'm full of desires. I think that's kind of interesting that he's like recognizing that he has his own desires too. Like, he's not as much of a monk as he thinks he is, which could, again, play maybe into like the him eating meat thing, if that's where it goes, right? And he's like, oh, it wasn't the first time though, you know, like it's happening all the time now. Like, he's repressed, if that makes sense. He's repressed, and so he's having dreams, right? And so I love this scene because he's like, you know, I guess he's touching Haru's like real hand, right? But he thinks it's a dream, right? And so she says in the dub like, oh, you know, like she's getting kind of that Legacy is getting kind of handsy, right? And so I like this, like, why? Which part of my head is producing them? A soft part that is not found anywhere in my body, right? And so I feel like that's almost like a double thing. Like, he's trying to you know, I feel like he's trying to talk about like his heart almost, like, you know, not his heart as in like his squishy heart, but like it's his like love that is like producing the dreams, but then the soft part not found anywhere in my body is also Haru's real hand. So he's like touching this and he's like, where's this coming from? Like, where's this manifestation of Haru coming from? And it's like actually real Haru, you know what I mean? Like, it's not fake Haru, it's Haru's real hand. So it's almost like, oh yeah, where's the soft hand coming from right now? You know, is it just a manifestation from my brain? And Haru's like, LOL, no, like it's me, I'm right here. You know what I mean? I'm here, bitch, like that sort of thing. Anyway. So I thought that that was pretty funny. And I like, again, how they said it in the sub, but I think that the dub did a really good job, like, making things more, not understandable, but I liked some of the translation they used over, like, the subtitles. Like, I like, you have, like, you're getting handsy. Like, that's a very, like, I don't know, like, that's a very sharp phrase, I guess, versus, like, the nasty hand type of thing. But anyway, and so I guess that Haru just, like, I don't want to say broke into his class, but like, you know, just like, went looking for him, I guess you could say. I also wonder if this is supposed to be some sort of like innuendo of some kind, but anyway, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, like, because, you know, she says that, right? And then, like, look at his face. Your class is finished, right? Like, he looks startled at first because I think that he's thinking of it in that sort of innuendo way, too. But then she specifies, wait, well, your class just finished, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's all that finished, okay? Like, you know what I mean? We don't need to go there, right? And so I think that that's kind of interesting. And so then, I love this. I love how, like, everyone is interested in their relationship. Like, I don't think we've seen a horse student before. I love their design and their sort of, like, bowl haircut, if that makes sense. And then, like, look at this giraffe comes down, and like even carnivores, right? This looks like it's a dog. This looks like it's some sort of like leopard type animal. What do you call it? Feline. Okay, there we go. You know, something like that. I love how everyone's staring at them, right? And he just shoos them away. It's because like everybody knows about their relationship, right? So I think that that's just really, really funny. And I love how he like cleans off the step with his tail for her. I thought that that was really cute. Now in the dub, she says like, I wonder if he's always that nice or if it's just for me. But here it's like, oh, an oath to himself to be like kind and that sort of thing, right? And so he's like, oh, are you enjoying your classes? Like just kind of like making small talk. And I like how it's like, oh, same old thing. But like, I think I said this a couple episodes ago because someone was like, yeah, like they just do kind of like basic class, but we don't really see any of that. Like somebody was saying maybe in season 3 we'll see more school. But I remember because somebody left a comment on my review and they were sort of saying that, and so I must have been like, oh my god, like they never show class, like what do y'all even do? So I think it's funny how like, oh, you know, same old, but we have never seen same old, you know what I mean? And I think that this was cute. Like he's younger than me, but sometimes he acts like a father. It's funny, and I think that that's like, I really like that dynamic, I guess, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to say like you know, the father part, like that's a little weird, right? But you know, just like somebody like concerned about you. It's like the mom friend, right? Like they're not your actual mom. Like it's not like a daddy issues type thing, right? But it's like you have that friend that's like responsible and caring, right? Like sometimes we have like a dad friend and a mom friend, right? And like that's just how they are. And so I feel like that's how Legoshi is, and I find that like very endearing, right? Rui was the exact opposite, like a baby, right? And so I feel like that's very interesting because something that I was thinking about the other day, I guess, was just about how like Rui is just so different from Legoshi. And so it's interesting when Haru is sort of like, you know, like what does she want in a guy, right? Like what does she want in a dude, I guess you could say. And I feel like that like something that attracted her to Rui was probably that he was like insecure and like a baby, you know what I mean? Because like her whole thing was all these guys are like like, you know what I mean, I'll protect you, like ha ha ha, like that. Like guys sort of look at her like cute and innocent face. Like that was a big thing in season 1 that she talked about, right? That a lot of guys saw her more as like an object to be protected, right? Like, you know, that they could like play the knight in shining armor, you could say, and they saw her like less as like an individual. I think that that's fair to say. I think that that's kind of what she meant, right? Like, you know, a lot of guys saw her as like small and innocent and in need of protection. And so, you know, she was sort of saying in season 1, I think, like how she sort of reclaimed an area, because the only way that they could be equal was like when, you know, she did, they were intimate together, I guess we'll say, right? And so when you think of it that way, right, like Rui seems to be a good candidate because he is a baby and he's insecure and he's stubborn and everything. And so Haru doesn't feel like outside of the intimacy that Rui is like doesn't see her like equally, if that makes sense. Like Rui needs to be taken care of. Let's just say it this way, okay? Like past guys that she's been with, they've seen themselves like this, and Haru like this, like, you know, in need of protecting. And then when they're intimate, she felt like they were finally on an equal level. The thing with Rui is that Rui was down here, you know what I mean? He's a baby, he's insecure, he's stubborn, like he's all of these things, right? And so she may have seen like almost, I don't want to say a life outside of like just like fucking casually, right? But like something like that. Like, you know, she knew that he had the fiance and stuff, but I think that she genuinely loved him and was interested outside of just their like garden club rendezvous, let's call it that, right? Like there was an actual interest, and I think it was because for the first time she could take care of someone. You know what I mean? Like Rui is kind of like the garden and the flowers. Like Rui needed her, right? Whereas the other guys did not need Haru. In fact, like it was almost like, oh, well, Haru needs me, ha ha ha. Like that was sort of the attitude of those guys. And so I think that why she was interested in Rui was because it was almost the reverse with Rui. With Legoshi, I feel like that, like Legoshi has always kind of been the best of both worlds, right? Like, yes, he does want to protect her, but also, like, he himself is also kind of awkward. So he's almost like the perfect mix of Rui and then those past guys, right? So that was something that I was thinking about. I don't remember what episode it was, but, like, while we were sort of, like, discussing that, and like why Haru is like not over Rui yet and everything like that, and would she even, I think it was like, would she even like Rui the way he is now, because she said, I can't imagine you as a carnivore, right? And so I feel like that she would have just naturally grown apart from Rui anyway, because like the whole thing was like that I think that she liked taking care of Rui more than she liked Rui, right? And I feel like that would fall apart with Rui being a part of the Shishigumi. That's what we were talking about. And so now, like, she actually kind of, like, acknowledges it, right? Like, you know, he was lonely. He needed her, right? Like, he needed something from her. But then, like, now as the Shishigumi boss, he may not need anything from her anymore, right? And so it's sort of like, it would change their relationship anyhow. Anyway, I like how this scene transitions. I thought that was really good, and I did not expect this at all. So she goes from like, you know, everything from before to saying that she loves him, right? And that's also like, I don't know what they used exactly, like the phrase, but like telling someone you love them is kind of like a big deal in like Japan, as far as like I understand. Like it's a very like heavy phrase depending on what was used. So like she could have said I really like you a lot, and they translated it to I love you, or she said like the big I love you, if that makes sense, right? But either way, in the dub they say I love you, right? And so I was just like, and he's just like, really? Like, is that true, right? Because he's just like, bro, like, you know, we're not even dating, and you're just, you know, coming out like this, right? Like you're coming out with this, right? And you see that he's actually like blushing, and he says, I think that he's the one who says thank you, right? You're strong, kind, big, and reliable, right? And so this is what I mean. Like, yes, Legoshi's strong, and, you know, he's big. Like, he could be like, oh, yes, Haru, I'll protect you, but he's also, like, kind, right? And so he's almost like that mixture, right? Like, he's the mixture of both. Like, he's awkward, and so she kind of needs to, like, take care of him and get him to, like, break out of his shell and that sort of thing, right? She sort of needs to take the lead, but he's also, like, strong in his own right. Like, Legoshi's just, like, the perfect mix, right? And then she brings up Rui, right? The more I fall in love with you, the more I'm worried about Rui, right? Because I feel like it's almost like she realizes how incapable Rui is, I guess. And I love this. I love how it just goes from this, right? And like she's just like, and I love how he's like, what? Like zen, you know what I mean? Like his hands are very like, I think he put them down instead of hugging her, but like, I feel like it's a very like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that sort of pose. I thought that was so funny. And then she starts to shake him. Like, oh no, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean to say, like, you know, something wrong like that. No, I'm not in love with him anymore. Legoshi, listen to me. Rui and I are over. We're not in a romantic relationship. And then she says, but I'm worried about him. He hasn't replied to my emails or phone calls. And then she says, herbivores and carnivores respond differently to non-communication. And we actually see that she's crying. And I feel so bad for her, because I feel like that what's sort of implied here is that, like, it's a biological instinct of some sort, right? Because she says, I can't help but wonder if he's in danger, right? In the sub. But then in the dub, I think she says, like, something similar, but it wasn't exactly like that. And the implication to me was, oh, like, that makes total sense. Like, it's biological instinct, because think about it, okay? Say that you're I don't know, say that you're like a pack of rabbits or something, I guess, right? Because she's a rabbit, right? And say like one of the rabbits doesn't come back from hunting things. I don't know. Do rabbits hunt? Do rabbits get like berries and stuff? I know that rabbits don't eat meat, but I'm saying like, do rabbits go out and like forage or something? Okay, say it's a bird, okay? Say that there are a bunch of birds and the birds go out to like look for twigs or something, and then the bird never comes back to like the nest. Like, you're gonna be worried that that bird probably got eaten, right? And so it's sort of like one of those things, I think, right? Like, I feel like that it's the difference between carnivores and herbivores is that herbivores start to be like, oh, like they have been eaten, they have been devoured, they are dead, right? And that's a biological instinct that if they don't come back to like the nest after a certain period of time, they start to get worried. And so that's basically at play with the whole Rui stuff. The rabbits was not a good example. I feel like the birds make a lot more sense, right? And so she feels helpless because, you know, she doesn't know if he's okay or not. And I wish that Legoshi just told her that he's fine and he's just busy. Like, you know what I mean? Not busy, but he's like, you know, I feel like saying that he's like the boss of the Shishigumi would worry her more. But couldn't he have just said like, hey, like I've seen him recently, okay? Can't go into detail, but like he's alive. Like, you know, like he could have said something like that, but he didn't. And I think that this is interesting though, that he wants to hold her back, but instead he sort of grabs her shoulders and like talks to her, like looks her in the eye and like says powerful statements instead, right? And so I think that it's interesting because he's basically saying like, I want to hold you back, but like I can't yet because I haven't like done what I've needed to do, right? Because he realizes, I guess, like her being tiny is sort of like again, like trying to convey to the audience like that he wants to hold her back, but then he realizes she's so small, she's so tiny, I've been dealing with the differences. And it's not just the difference between like height, I guess, it's a difference between herbivore and carnivore, and he hasn't resolved that yet in a lot of ways. So he's like, I can't hold you yet, I can only hold you after I resolve everything, is sort of the mentality, right? And so I do like his like little resolve right here. I think that that was really, really nice. And so then she's just like, Legoshi, and he's just like, I'll do my best. And she's just like, okay, you're kind of weird though. You know what I mean? Because she doesn't know what he's talking about. I'll hold you after I sort out everything. And so yeah, I really like that. Like I really liked kind of that explanation, and that also recontextualizes like why he walked away from her, right? Because I think a lot of people were surprised when they were about to kiss and then Legoshi just fucked off. You know what I mean? I remember reading on the Reddit before this episode came out that a lot of people felt like it was a backstep for their relationship. But now doesn't that make a lot of sense? Like he walked away from her until like he could basically sort out everything, so to speak, right? And that is still like ongoing currently. And it's not the exact same reason, right, as he walked away from her back then, but it all ties together. Like it was partly because of what we see now. And so that recontextualizes what happened before. So moving on to Pina's relationship problems. What's interesting about this is that this is kind of like a bit of foreshadowing, right? Like he was touching the horns of the girl and she put like honey on them to give them luster, as she says. And that's why he had the honey on his hands. And that's relevant to what happened with Riz later. But I wonder if he'll try to like use that same trick or something like in the future. Because obviously like Riz and Legoshi are gonna fight, like that's like the whole thing in this episode. But I sort of wonder like whether or not Pina will like help in a capacity and it'll be like the honey on the horns or something. I don't know. But anyway, there's not that much to say about like this other than like, you know, he's playing the beautiful boy whose soul is taken by death and everything in the play. Like he's gonna die by the end. And I hope that that's not like foreshadowing to him actually dying, because I'm like, Pina, you were so young. You just got here, you know what I mean? And so that's definitely something to think about, right? Is that if that is foreshadowing, like his role in the play, it may happen again. I don't know. And so then he calls her Riona, and you see like her eyes go wide and then she gets annoyed, right? Then she's like, like, you know, and so I thought that that was like a nice little expression change, like a very subtle thing, but then you know that it's because he got her name wrong, right? So I really like that. And so I also like how he's like, putting the moves on her, I guess, like, you know, he's bringing up the part in the play so it could be like, if I died in real life, would you cry for me, right? You know what I mean? He's trying to like, this is like weird flirting, I guess you could say, right? And so then she's just like, nah, I might laugh because you got my name wrong. It happened again. And she basically like stomps on him. No one will come to your funeral if you keep mixing up girls' names, right? And I thought that that was like so funny, but I'm like, really, dude? Like, you know, it's not like especially in the context of Beastars, every animal looks so different. Like, how can you be getting these girls confused? You know what I mean? Like, they all have like different like fur and stuff like that. So I'm just like, Pina, please. Girls kill me with their words. I thought that was sort of funny. And what I really liked about this scene though was the fact that like he tries to put on, I don't want to say like a show, but he tries to kind of be sarcastic and witty and act like nothing scares him or bothers him. But we actually see that facade, I guess, break a couple times in this scene, right? And so then he's just like, I'm not feeling good lately. The role of the dying beautifully at the end is perfect for me now, right? And so I guess he could be saying that he's like not on his game lately, but now like having this role in the show will like elevate his status with the girls, you could say. But then it's also maybe like, I don't know, that he also thinks like, you know what? Like if I die, I die, right? Like in the context of the stuff with Riz a little bit as well, right? And so then we actually see like he's like surprised, right? And he seems genuinely scared because Riz is behind him. But then he tries to like, you know, play it off. And he tries to be like, oh, you scared me. I guess murderers use the bathroom too, right? And so, you know, he tries to like play it off like he's not scared, but we see that when he thinks that Riz can't see him, he is genuinely afraid. And I really like that for his character. I find that really interesting, right? When you tell Legoshi not to get involved with me anymore, why? If you leave me alone, I can live peacefully with memories of Tem. But if you guys ruin the friendship I had with Tem, I will shut Legoshi up and might also eat you, right? So he's basically saying like, hey, I want to continue to live in ignorant bliss. Like that's really what this is, right? And I find that like very like fascinating. That part of him though seems to acknowledge the fact that if Legoshi keeps digging, the truth will be revealed, and then the ignorant bliss and the memories with Tem. It's almost like he knows that the memories with Tem are fake, but he can almost like trick himself as long as nobody else brings that up. It's like there's a weird level of self-awareness. And then Pina says, I don't think you should do that, because he says like, oh, you know, I'll start from your head. And it's like, the horns would get in the way, right? Like he's trying to again play it off, and I really like that, like as a, you know, a character archetype, I guess, like the kind of character he is, right? Like he's like, oh, you know, I wouldn't do that if I were you. My horns would get in the way and it wouldn't taste very good. You'd have bad indigestion. Like I just love his like kind of jokey personality. But then Riz like sucks on his finger, and it's just so like there's just a lot to unpack here, right? Because I feel like there's something oddly sexual about all this. You know what I mean? I don't know if you guys agree, because I haven't put out my reviews for like the episode where we find out what happened with Riz and Tem, but I feel like that there was almost something romantic, right? You know what I mean? And then you have Pina being like, oh, Legoshi, would you devour me like when we're both in the dark right now? You know, and so I feel like there's something oddly like, I don't even know, like there's something just odd. There's something just odd here, I guess, about like Riz just sucking his finger, I guess, and like we'll just leave it there because I don't even know. But you see like how scared, right? Like genuinely scared Pina is in this moment, and he falls on the floor. I think Riz pushes him on the floor. I couldn't help it because your fingers smelled of honey. Sorry, right? And then he just walks away, right? And so obviously that was from the girl and her horns that she had waxed, and he says, my finger's still there, right? Like he genuinely thought his finger was going to be like gone. That's great. And then he just lies on the floor. I feel so relieved that I don't mind lying down on the bathroom floor. I'm actually more desperate to live than I thought, right? And so I found that interesting too, because as he was talking in the mirror, it seemed kind of like a double thing, like, oh, you know, this role of dying in the play is good for me because I can like get the ladies that way, but it seemed also like, you know, if I die, I die. It just be like that sometimes. Like that sort of seemed like his like mentality too, that he had like a carelessness like for his life and everything. But then like when faced with death, he realizes, you know what, like I don't actually want to die. I'm more desperate to live than I thought, right? And I think that like in the dub they were like, oh, you know, I'm so relieved I'm lying on this disgusting bathroom floor. I really liked again those like little changes just like for his character, because he is very like posh and everything, right? And so I like the disgusting bathroom floor thing. And so then we have him and Juno rehearsing for the play basically, right? And so I think that this is interesting because I would like to go back and see if these are like the same lines that were in the play like in season 1, right? I'm kind of sweet, aren't I? I feel so much better, right? And so I think that like in English he says that he feels lighter, and so it's almost like when faced with death, he has found like new resolve, right? And I love how he like looks at Riz like when he's in the spotlight, right? Like one of them's in the light, one of them's in the darkness. Like I feel like that was really, really good. Will you and other deaths be satisfied if I beg for my life? I think other deaths was really interesting, right? Because it's almost like other like Shinigami, right? Like, you know, like, or I guess like you know, not even deaths as in like a person per se, but like it's almost as if have you ever played a game where a character is fated to die, like something like Life is Strange, but then they avoid death once, but death keeps coming for them, if that makes sense, right? So I think if you save Chloe from getting shot, I think the second time is death tries to get her by like her getting hit by like a train or something. Like, you know what I mean? There are just more and more instances where the universe tries to kill her. And so I feel like that this is kind of the same thing with Pina. It's like, you know, will you and the other deaths like always try to like hunt me down no matter what? My life is worthless, yet it is mine. And I think that that's very interesting for Pina specifically, because he sort of had this attitude of, you know what, I'm going to indulge in all of life's pleasures. I'm not going to be monogamous. Like, I'm going to kind of like just, you know, go with the flow. If I get devoured, so what? Like, he kind of had that attitude. And you could say, I don't want to say, you know, I don't judge anyone's choices, but I think that Pina may think that that's a worthless way to live. You know what I mean? Like, he's not doing some grand thing where he tries to change the world, right? Like, he's not making the most out of his life. He's not like, you know, he's not curing the common cold, so to speak. He just wants to enjoy, like, he basically wants to fuck bitches, get money, right? That's what I always say when somebody has that sort of attitude, right? And so he is sort of recognizing that compared to someone like Legoshi, that has this grand sense of justice. Like, yes, his life is worthless, yet it is mine, right? And so I think that that's interesting because they're like, oh, that's good. He remembers the lines, right? And so it seemed like that maybe that was in the script. I'm not entirely sure though, but I still feel like it applies to him. Like, I still feel like that's an important thing for Pina as a character. My fear of death is also my own. So it's almost like, yes, I live a worthless life, but like it's my life, you know what I mean? And the fear of death is also like, is also mine. And you see everyone's like stunned, right? Because he went like, he's not acting anymore, but they all think he is. So it's like, oh, Pina, the talent, right? And I kind of like half his face in light and half his face in darkness, just because of all like the light and darkness metaphors that they have kind of talked about this season, like Rui saying, oh, good luck, you know, surviving in that faint light type of thing. I'll let you hear the cry of my heart, but not my will. And I think that that was interesting, right? Because it's almost like you can like break my heart, but not my spirit type of thing, right? Like, you will not stop me from like wanting to live and fighting against it, right? Like, my heart will cry out, but my will persist, right? And I love this. I love how like serious he is. And I thought this was just like, it was good for the meta thing of like, oh my God, like Pina's such a good actor. Oh my goodness. But it's also like he genuinely means it. And that makes the scene so much better, is that he's putting everything into it. He's putting all of his energy and all of his power. And that's why like everyone's like so shook, right? Like, look at this. This guy like knocks over his drink, right? Because he's just so like taken in by Pina in this moment, right? Like, it's so like meaningful, right? And you see he's like exhausted too, like after like putting that much strength in the scene. And Juno's just like, Pina, what is wrong with you? Like, are you okay? Like, what the fuck is happening, right? And so that was kind of like funny in a way, right? It's like, oh, what do you mean? And he just walks away, right? But then he pats Riz and he's like, ah, did you see that? Right? And so I feel like that was like interesting, because it was almost like a message to Riz, but it was also like, how can you, you know, how can you murder me when I'm like the star actor, when I've left such a big impression on everyone, right? I see he seems to have nothing left to say, right? And so it was a message to Riz, but I feel like it also like almost doubled as that as well. And now back to the Shishigumi. Something weird that is happening here is that Ibuki says, free, take this gun from now on. If I want to devour the boss, just shoot me, right? And so I think that's interesting, because I think the implication is that Ibuki is starting to care about Rui so much that he's afraid that he may devour him. Like, it could also just be a preventative measure, because he's like, you know, if I become just a normal lion and he like a normal deer, like, just shoot me just in case, right? Like, that's sort of like the attitude, but I wonder if it's because he cares about him, and like that's like a big source of the devouring. Again, I think they said in season 1 something like that, like, oh, you know, you want to devour Haru, so she's like with you all the time because you love her so much. Like, Gohan tries to like psychoanalyze him, that sort of thing, right? So I think that that's what he's worried about, right? That he cares about Rui so much that like that may like get his wires crossed. Anyway, so Pina explains what happened to Legoshi basically. Oh yeah, well you were skipping the club to go to the black market, right? And so it seems like that Pina does like know about his training and everything, right? And so then Pina's basically like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a plan, by the way, like, yeah, fuck you Legoshi, I'm doing this without you, because Legoshi freaks out. He's like, oh yeah, it's too dangerous, you can't do that. And so I feel like that this is what Pina kind of meant. It's that it's not that he has a disregard for his life, but it's almost like that he's like, you know what, like I still have the will to live, and like that'll be enough, right? Like my fear of death is my own. My life may be worthless, but it's still my life. And so it's almost like, you know what? I'm gonna do something like meaningful right here. I'm going to like catch the killer. I'm gonna let myself be kind of the decoy so we can like catch this guy type of thing, right? Like Pina has taken action, I think, based off of his lines in the play to a certain extent, right? And anyway, so it seems like that they're all leaving. Apparently they're leaving for, I guess, winter break, like for New Year's or something, right? And so they all leave, and I'm so sad that like Bill does not suspect that anything is up, because I really wanted Bill to help take down Riz, but it does not seem like that's happening. And so then we think that Legoshi found the note, everything's okay, and then he gets his head smacked into a wall, right? So most of this is just like fight scenes. It's surprisingly cowardly of you to lure me in Pina's name, right? And so like now he thinks like, oh, Legoshi's the one doing it, but Legoshi was trying to stop it. Did you think that you could beat me, Legoshi, right? Don't look at me with the eyes of a predator and call my name. It makes me sick, right? Because it's like, you know, we're both carnivores. Like, I'm not your prey, right? This gray wolf is different from other carnivores, as I thought. You know me very well. I'm more interested in eating you than talking to you, Legoshi. Like, even the cannibalism, though, seriously. But then he starts to get a headache, and he tries to go for the honey, and Legoshi basically takes it. You know, he's aware of what happens to brown bears, and he throws the honey out the window. So a little strategic warfare, right? It's almost like how he knew, like, for a leopard, you have to trip him. For a bird, you have to like punch him in the voice cords, right? So they don't scream. It's almost like the exact same thing here. It's that he knows that he has like bear related weaknesses, I guess you could say, right? And so I kind of feel bad for Riz in that way. You know what I mean? Like the side effects of all the drugs and stuff is probably not helping. And then he just goes into like full like scary mode. And I just love like, oh yeah, that's better, right? Because I feel like that he basically did this so the real Riz would come out. Like the scary Riz, I guess, you know, like, and so he almost wants the side effects to take hold. No one will ever accept the real me, right? And so it's only Tem that allegedly did, but he didn't, right? And so I feel like that's what is going to be interesting is I feel like that it's possible that Legoshi could accept Riz for the real him by virtue of taking him to Gohan and getting him rehabilitation. Because when you think about it, is it not acknowledging the kind of beast that Riz is by taking him to Gohan and getting him treatment, right? Like in a way. And so I think that what would be interesting is if at the end of all of this, the only person that accepted Riz for who he was actually not Tem, but Legoshi. And Legoshi did that by virtue of, I guess, taking him into Gohan because that recognizes how dangerous and how much of a beast Riz is actually. Anyway, so we have a fight scene here. I'm not really gonna show anything, but I do love like the facial expressions, right? And so it's almost like, oh yeah, we're nothing more than terrible beasts, right? And so I think that there's a lot of like self-loathing with Riz, right? Is that he sees himself as like a terrible, you know, like a terrible beast, and like that they're both the same, right? And then he says, hey, Legoshi, you might be able to understand how lonely I've been. But I think what Riz doesn't realize is that the reason why Legoshi is different is because he has taken his loneliness and almost embraced it. Like there's another episode where he said something to the effect of like, you know, my strength doesn't exist to make me happy. It's almost as if like he is lonely in a way, but has, I don't want to say he has just dealt with it, but he isn't bothered by that loneliness because he's trying to make the stride to, I guess, like make up for it in other ways. His strength as a carnivore basically separates him from the herbivores, right? In a way, and that can cause loneliness, right? But by using that strength to protect the herbivores, he's able to bridge the divide between them, right? And so it's almost like the differences between Haru and himself could make him lonely, or he could strive to like build that bridge in other ways is basically what I'm saying. And so in that way, like Legoshi isn't lonely because he understands loneliness, but he also is like working hard in order to, I guess, like mitigate the loneliness in the ways that he can, and that's through protecting the herbivores. And so we have a lot of blood in this scene, so we got to get rid of that. This meal is more sacred than anything else. And then he basically takes him to, I guess, like the showers or something like that. And I'm so surprised that like nobody's around to notice this, but right, everybody's going home for New Year's. The only question I have is where the fuck is Six Eyes, okay? You'd think at this point she would intervene somehow, but she doesn't, and I get the whole like, oh, Legoshi, I knew it was Riz all along. I just wanted you to prove yourself and be the Beastar, right? Like, I could see her saying something like that, but I'm just like, sis, really? You know what I mean? Like, it would be different if they gave an indication that she was around and just not helping, but it's like they introduced her only for her to fuck right off. Like, it makes no, that's my only criticism of this season, is that they introduce Six Eyes to kind of like get Legoshi going, and then she's like not even here, you know what I mean? Like, she's not even here to not be here, if that makes sense. Like, it's like they forgot about her, more so that they're making an actual point about her not being around. You can let me bleed as much as I want here, right? And so I don't know, like, how Riz thinks he's gonna like get away with this too, because like, I feel like, okay, well, maybe nobody saw him, but say, like, the lady that saw him, right? Like, him in the bathhouse. Like, if he actually killed Legoshi, like, that would put him at the scene of the crime, you know what I mean? And so it seems like that there's also, like, some self-harm stuff going on, because he has some scars that he says, like, oh, you know, once you've eaten fresh meat, you can't help hurting yourself out of guilt and anger, right? And so it seems like that's sort of the implication there, which again, that's why I kind of like changed my tone a little bit. It's the more that I think about it, like, it's not necessarily that Riz is like a cold-blooded murderer. He's just like very, very ill and he needs rehabilitation. So I guess I've just changed my mind, right? I'll take back Tem in my school life, right? So it's like he wants to go back into like the delusion. It's like, oh gosh, it's the whole like Plato's shadows type thing. Like, he wants to go back in the cave with his shadows instead of going into the outside world where there's the actual like physical like, you know what I mean? It's like he wants the shadow of the tree versus going into the world and seeing like a real tree. Like, it's almost like that. He wants to keep living in like almost like an ignorant bliss. So Legoshi does hold his own. I don't know about reopening his like implied to be self-harm scars. I don't know how people think about that, right? These aren't old wounds and never touch my precious memories. And so that seems to imply like the wounds aren't that old. You know what I mean? They're recent wounds, I guess, right? And then like, you know, again, like he doesn't want the memory to, I guess, like, he doesn't want the true memories to resurface, right? You will sully, like, the precious memories that I have. Tem was the only one who accepted me. No, you devoured Tem, right? We made friends regardless of our species. You're the one who ate Tem, right? So it's like, he keeps trying to, like, break down the delusion, and I'll show you guys the facial expression, even though there's, like, a little blood. It's, like, minimal blood, right? And so, you know, you see how angry he's getting. Like, Legoshi keeps, reinforcing the truth. Only predation can break the walls between species. So it seems like that he's saying, like, the only way to break down the wall between the species is to eat the herbivores, right? And I think that that's pretty fucked. Only love can break the wall between species, and I like that. I think that that was really nice. But the problem is, like, for Riz, I think the devouring was, like, crossed over with love, which is why we're in this problem in the first place, right? Love, we don't have such a thing. And so, again, I think it's the self-loathing that's really the problem here, because he sees himself as, like, an irredeemable monster. You know, we're just monsters with our fangs and claws. You know, love doesn't exist for us. Like, we can't feel love. All we feel is hatred and loneliness, right? And so, like, he says, like, the claw thing earlier as well, and so you can really see, like, the source of all this is, like, that self-hatred. Like, he doesn't think that there's a capability of love, that this is the only thing he can do. And it's almost like society kept telling him that he was a monster, and then he started to genuinely, like, believe that, right? And I feel like that, especially with the muscle atrophy medication and stuff, like, all of that really, like, plays a part in that, like, self-loathing, right? Because it's like, oh, you know, you need to take this so you don't hurt anyone. You start to only think of yourself as, like, a monster that is, you know, feared and dangerous and should be hated and stayed away from, right? And so I feel like that's really, I guess, the key part of, like, all of Riz's issues is the fact that he, you know, basically all of the bears to some extent are kind of like criminalized before they've even done anything. They are demonized, I guess you could say, before they've done anything wrong. And then that, especially as like a teenager, when your brain is still developing, you internalize that to an extent. Yeah, so this was kind of weird, but anyway. And then we see again Riz's like crazy facial expression. And so I think that this is when, you know, Legoshi's like, you know, bite down. You ate the soft meat of herbivores and you think you know all about them. You should try some carnivore meat and blood, right? Like Legoshi's skin is so tough that he'll break his jaw basically, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like if you like crunch down right now, you'll never be able to eat again, right? It was like the whole like skin toughness thing. But then as they're fighting, somebody comes in, and so I think that like Legoshi thinks like, oh shit, like Riz is gonna go kill whoever's outside, but instead he puts on his like poker face, his polite face, I guess we'll call it, right? And so I feel like that this is again like the hard part about Riz's character, and Legoshi acknowledges this too, like, okay, well, you know, there's somebody outside, so let's just wash the blood off the floor and everything, right? Like, you know, like let's make the job easier for her. If he could remain as a simple villain, it would be a lot easier to hate him, right? Because that's the thing, is that he's actually considerate of this like school lady right here, and so he's very complicated, right? I still hate him, like I still, you know, I have sympathy for him, I guess, but if it were a year ago, I'd just walk away. But see, then he can't, right? He can't forgive him, he can't walk away, right? And so then they start fighting again. And he's like, no, like, this is it for now. Like, we can't, you know, we can't keep fighting. Like, there's somebody literally outside, right? Like, we'll have to, like, settle this another time. And so it seems interesting that Riz is the one, like, worried about, like, you know, saving face and, like, perceptions and all of that sort of stuff. So then they basically decide, like, hey, we'll settle this on New Year's, right? There's plenty of time to prepare to kill you perfectly. And so they basically, like, you know, decide to do a duel. You know what I mean? Like, that's basically what they decide to do, so they don't continue to inconvenience anyone or anything, right? You should have taken him to the police, or you could have, I guess Gohan says, right? It is so like you, though. I'm just following your policies. So that's the thing, right? Like, all this time I've been like, Legoshi, just take him to the fucking cops, right? But now, right, we kind of understand that, like, Legoshi is just following what Gohan has taught him, right? And that's, like, rehabilitation. So he seems interested in wanting to rehabilitate Riz, but the problem is that I don't know if Riz wants that, because up until now, Riz has been, like, very resistant, like, you know what I mean? Won't acknowledge, like, what he did. He's kind of living in his delusion, right? But if his delusion breaks and he is able to recognize that he truly ate Tem, I feel like that he could want redemption, that he could want rehabilitation, right? And so, you know, carnivores can be redeemed if they want it, but I feel like the mental cloud around Riz has to get lifted first, right? And that'll be like Legoshi basically taking him down, bringing him here, right? And getting him rehabilitated. And so I feel like that, like, when the process starts and that cloud, like, goes away, or like the veil goes away, then Riz will truly want redemption for what he did, possibly, right? Because again, I don't think he's cold-blooded. I think he's living in his own, you know, his own hallucination, like I said before. He's living in this world where he thinks that Tem genuinely consented to being eaten, and so, like, Legoshi, I didn't do anything wrong, like, you know what I mean? You're just sullying my memory by, like, making me out to be a murderer. Like, I didn't murder him. It was, like, you know, it was equal, I guess you could say. Again, it was, like, consented to or whatever, right? And so when he realizes that that's not the truth, I think that, like, we could get a scene where he's, like, crying, he breaks down, and Legoshi's like, it's gonna be okay, and then he gets rehabilitated instead of, like, in jail. But doesn't that mean that Legoshi won't be the Beastar? Because instead of turning him into the police and catching the killer, they are going to rehabilitate him. Unless he tells the principal that, and then the principal, you know what I mean? Like, unless it's like, oh, the killer has been caught, we know that it was Riz, but, like, Riz has now, like, mysteriously disappeared, right? Or is being rehabilitated, like, formally. Like, unless they all know that, they will always think that the killer was on the loose. I want to confront him rather than just punish him. See, and so that's the thing. He needs to be confronted in the sense of, like, the veil has to be lifted. And so then Gohan says that there is a way to be stronger right away, right? But I wonder what that's gonna be. Like, there is a way, but you have to eat herbivore meat, like I told you, and I've been telling you this entire time. I feel like it could go that way for all the reasons I've already discussed, Or you could also get something a little bit different than that, where it's like, why don't you eat some bugs? Because that's what I've been thinking about this entire time. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure yet. Like, I could see it go either or. Like, you know, Legoshi, you finally just need to eat some meat, you know what I mean? Like, the circle of life type thing that I mentioned earlier. Or it could go in the other direction, where it's sort of like, well, there is a way you could eat some bugs. And that could be the whole thing. But yeah, that is basically it, guys. I don't really have any more theories. I think that it's just like next episode is gonna be set up for like this big New Year's fight or something. Or it may even get the New Year's fight next episode, and then it basically like all wraps up in episode 12 and everything. But like there's still a lot of like loose plot threads in a way, you know what I mean? Like Rui's whole thing, like we haven't seen Rui come back to school to like help Legoshi yet. There's that whole thing. So maybe on New Year's it'll happen. Maybe he'll get a message to Rui about that. Like I can see this ending like Legoshi has like taken Riz in, and then like you know, him and Haru are doing like the regular like New Year's stuff. Like sometimes I see in anime like people will go into like a temple and stuff and like make a wish on New Year's, and so I can see like that kind of happening, you know what I mean? Like Legoshi's just, he has a little bit of blood on him, he has some bruises, maybe his shirt's not even on, and Haru's like, bro, what the fuck? And it's just like, well, let's go make a wish, let's go do New Year's stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like I could see that sort of happening, right? But yeah, we still have like the whole plot thread with the principal, right, about like whoever catches the killer will be the Beastar. Six Eyes has not returned, and so what I'm assuming is happening is that like some of this stuff is being planted for next season, right? Like, there's no way that we're finishing all this. Like, this was really about, like, the Riz arc, and then I think the Rui Rebellion arc, let's just call it that. And so I feel like that Rui may come back to school and have a more, like, balanced life almost, something like that, and that'll be the resolution to his whole thing, is that he'll, like, basically exist in both worlds, and then also, like, Riz will get rehabilitated. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed my little review, my little analysis, our little discussion, analyze, theorize session. As we always say, thank you for attending Calxyn's Royal Court, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!